Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make chocolate whoopie pies. A whoopie pie is like a cupcake, only in sandwich cookie form. So for these chocolate whoopie pies, we're going to take 2 soft and moist chocolate cookies and sandwich them together with a creamy vanilla flavored frosting. So we'll start with the chocolate cookies. Preheat your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 190 degrees Celsius. And then you will need 2 baking sheets, and you can either line them with parchment paper, or you could just lightly butter them or spray them with a nonstick spray. And then we will mix the dry ingredients together first. So in a large bowl, put 1 3/4 cups, which is 230 grams of white all-purpose flour. And then I'm going to just sift over top 3/4 of a cup of unsweetened cocoa powder. And I like to use the Dutch processed cocoa powder because I like the mild chocolate flavor of that type. But you could just use the regular unsweetened if that's all you have. And I like to sift the cocoa powder because it tends to have lumps, which we don't want, little pieces of chunks of chocolate in our batter, so we got to sift that. And to that I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And just whisk, or you could sift this. I'm just going to whisk it together. Get everything mixed. Some people say these chocolate cookies are like a devil food cake in cookie form. They really have a nice, soft, really moist, sponge cake-like texture. Quite delicious. Okay. And then, if you have an electric stand mixer like this, use the paddle attachment, or you could just use an electric hand mixer. And the first thing is we need 3/4 of a cup of butter, and that's 170 grams, and have that at room temperature. I like to use the unsalted. I prefer the flavor, but you could use salted. If you use salted, then I would leave out that 1/4 teaspoon of salt that I put in with the flour. And I'm just going to start by mixing the butter just until it's creamy and smooth. Okay. And then add 3/4 of a cup, which is 150 grams of granulated white sugar. And we're going to beat this until it's really light and fluffy on medium-high speed for, that would take a couple minutes. Okay. Scrape down the sides of your bowl. And then I'm going to add 1 large egg and have that at room temperature, along with 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. Try to use a pure rather than the artificial ones because the pure has a lot better flavor. And I'm just going to beat those in. So now we have our dry ingredients already mixed together. So then for our wet ingredients, I have 1/2 cup, which is 120 milliliters of coffee, and that's kind of like room temperature. If you don't want to use coffee, you could just use water instead. And to the coffee, I'm just going to add 1/4 cup, which is 60 milliliters of buttermilk, and just stir those together. If you can make your own buttermilk just by taking like a cup 240 milliliters of regular milk, and then just add like a tablespoon of either lemon juice or vinegar and stir it together, and then just let it sit for about 10 minutes, and then you have buttermilk. Or else there is now a product, buttermilk powder, and you could just keep it in the fridge so that you don't have to worry about buying your buttermilk when you're making something. It's another alternative. So now what we're going to do is add the flour alternately with the liquid. So I'm going to add about a third of the flour mixture first. And I'm just going to beat that in. Be careful. Start on low speed because you don't want that flour mixture coming up in your face. And then I'm going to add about half of the liquid here. Just beat that in. Scrape down. I really like the combination of chocolate and coffee. It's a really nice flavor. Okay, and then add a little more flour. And then the liquid. Scrape this down. Make sure everything's mixed together. And the last of the flour mixture. You really smell the cocoa powder. Okay, so we're done. Just give it a quick stir to make sure everything's all mixed in here. Whoopie pies have really seen their popularity grow. I mean, they were invented back around 1930s, and I think it's with this whole cupcake craze, it's kind of brought back the whoopie pie. Okay, so now we're just going to form the batter into cookies. You can use, we want about a heaping tablespoon, so you can either use a tablespoon, or I'm using a ice cream scoop that's about a tablespoon. You want to try to make every cookie the same size, because we're going to be taking two and sandwiching them together, so you want the cookies to be the equal size. So, and space them about 2 inches apart. It's about 5 centimeters, because they do spread a little. You can actually buy a whoopie pie pan. Okay, and then just have a little water, and then I'm just going to get my hands just damp, and then just smooth them out. Okay, looks good. So we're going to put them in the oven for about 8 to 10 minutes, just until they're, if you take your finger and press, they're nice and spongy, or you could put a toothpick in the center and it will come out clean. Okay, our chocolate cookies are now done. As you can see, they got a nice dome top, and if you press them, they're firm but not like really hard. There's a little give to them. You could even put a toothpick into the center and it will come out clean. Now we're going to have to let these cool completely, and then we will make the creamy vanilla filling. So now we'll make the vanilla flavored filling. This is a soft, almost marshmallow-like filling. It's really quite lovely. So if you have a stand mixer, use the paddle attachment. And what I have is 1/4 cup. It's about 60 milliliters of shortening, vegetable shortening, and 1/4 cup, 57 grams of butter. If you don't want to use shortening, shortening doesn't add a lot of flavor, but what it does do is it makes it really nice and light and fluffy. But if you don't want to use shortening, you could just use butter in its place. And I like to use unsalted butter because I like the flavor, but you could use salted. And I'm just going to beat these two together until they're nice and creamy and smooth. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is add 1 cup, that's about 120 grams of confectioner's sugar. You might know that as either powdered or icing sugar, and sift that to get rid of all the lumps. And I'm going to add that gradually. Just add a little and beat that in, and then just add a little more until it's all incorporated. Do this on low speed so it doesn't, sugar doesn't fly up in your face. You don't want that. Scrape down, especially at the bottom, and make sure all that sugar gets beaten in. So now what we're going to do is beat this for somewhere between 3 and 5 minutes. We want it to be really light and fluffy, get lots of air in there. Okay, you can see it's really nice and light and fluffy. It's the shortening that gives it that really lightness. Kind of like when some people add a little vegetable shortening to their pie crust to give it that light and flakiness. It does the same thing here with this filling. So now what we're going to do is, for the vanilla flavoring, we're going to add 1½ teaspoons of pure vanilla extract. I'll just beat that in. And the last ingredient we're going to drizzle in is 1/2 cup, which is 120 milliliters of light corn syrup. And when you're measuring out corn syrup, what I like to do is take your measuring cup and lightly spray it with one of those nonstick sprays. So therefore, the corn syrup, and you can do this for like honey, molasses, anything like that that's really sticky, and then the corn syrup won't stick to the glass. It'll just all come out. You don't have to bother scraping and all that. So I'm going to have the mixer on about low to medium low and slowly drizzle in the 1/2 cup of corn syrup, and I'm going to keep beating it until it's like really nice and soft, kind of like mayonnaise or sour cream. scrape down the sides. And I'm just going to beat it a little bit until it thickens up, just a little. Just until it's nice, be easy to spread on the cookies. Okay, we're done. This is kind of your classic whoopie pie combination, chocolate cookie with vanilla filling. But really, you could fill this, on the site I have like a peppermint whoopie pie which has a marshmallow cream filling. You can use cream cheese, so there's all different things that you could do. So once you have your filling and you have your whoopie pies that are nice and cool to room temperature, because you don't want that filling to be melting on there. And I would take maybe about a tablespoon. Of course, you want more or less. It's like cupcakes. Some people like a lot of frosting and some people don't. So on the underside, of course, you take another one, sandwich it together, like so, and there you have it, a chocolate whoopie pie. So you can cover and store these in the refrigerator probably close to a week. Some people like them cold, or you can bring them to room temperature. So until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.